So what I want to do tonight is tell you about my adventures with God. I want to tell you about the transformation that takes place when one comes in contact with God and suddenly comes into relationship with God. So in the Bhagavad Gita, it says, I was born in the mode of darkness. My spiritual master opened my eyes with a torch of knowledge. I think that's where we all begin. We begin in darkness. We don't, perhaps aren't even aware or come into our consciousness that there is a God, that there is another realm, that there is a spiritual life. And so I think that's where we begin. And when we begin there, you are a law unto yourself. You decide what's good, what's bad, who's good, who's bad, if I'm going to hate or not hate, if that's good, if that's not bad. You're a law unto yourself. You have no other guide except yourself. But then something happens, and it could be something like the first death you experience in the family, or it could be a sickness, it could be the lack of something, but something jars you and suddenly you say, help, there's got to be something more. And it's something that doctors can't take care of, and the bank can't give it to you, and nobody else can help you. And then you start wondering, is there more? Is there another place of finding help? Well, that's what happened to me, but it happened to me as a child. I was 8 years old. And I was talking to Tamal about this talk, and he was saying, you must have come from a religious family. And I don't know, maybe in a past life, I was from another family, from a religious family. All I know is that I've always been religious. And when we went to India for the first time, I honestly felt I was home. I was walking the streets and it seemed like these were familiar. The sounds, the smells, it felt like I've been here before. That was the feeling. So when I was 8, you're a child. To you, your parents are your gods. To me, my dad was the richest man in the world because he always had coins in his pocket and chewing gum. So he came home from work and he would always give us a half a stick of chewing gum. So I thought, he's wealthy, he has everything. My mother was very religious. She always prayed. My grandmother, my paternal grandmother, lived with us. And so she was always a very religious woman. We had a 2-story house. In the middle of that 2-story house was a window. You could look up there day or night. My grandmother was in her rocking chair, and she had her Bible and her hymn book on her lap all day, all day. You could count on that. You could count on that. So I was fortunate that I had a religious family. So it was a surprise to me at 8. I went with them to them, all 3 of them, with a need. And they all said the same thing. I'm sorry, honey, but we don't have the money. But ask God and he'll give it to you. And I thought that was strange, but they said that. So I thought, okay. So I go up to the second floor to the boys' bedroom. I shared with 3 other brothers, and it's a big, I slept on a big iron bed with 2 of my brothers. I was the youngest, so I had to sleep in the middle. And so I just knelt down by that iron bed. I'd seen my grandmother and my mother pray, so I just held my hands real tight and closed my eyes real tight and just said, God, this is what I need. Can you please send it tomorrow? Because it was Sunday and tomorrow was school and I needed it tomorrow. So I said, please give it to me tomorrow. And so I went off to play. In my mind, I had no doubt that God was going to answer my prayer. In the scriptures, Christian scriptures, it also says, unless you become like one of these little children, you can't enter the kingdom of God. And what is that? It's total faith, total expectancy, no doubt. I just went about my business because God's going to give me this tomorrow. And sure enough, in the morning, nothing happened. I'm in 3rd grade. Nothing happens. About 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, suddenly there's a knock at the classroom door, and a lady dressed in white comes in. I thought, God is a woman? I don't know. And so She comes in and she's going up and down the rows and looking at everybody's feet. And she picks five students, and I was one of them. What I had prayed for was shoes. And so she took five of us and got permission to take us in a big station wagon. And we drove to downtown Adrian, Michigan, the great metropolis. And we went to the back of J.C. Penney's. And she marched us in there to the shoe department and said, pick out your shoes. Just like that, pick out your shoes. So I got my shoes. I run home, Mom, my God shoes, my God shoes. I got God shoes. And she said, where did you steal those shoes? Like, I'm going to steal the right size shoes, the right color. No, so those shoes were brown with yellow laces. And that was my introduction to God. That's God. God is richer than my dad. God can do more than my mother, more than my grandmother. And that was the beginning. I started talking to God every single day. It was about stuff like help me make a friend, help me with my homework, keep me safe while I go to school because the neighbor has two big dogs and I was afraid of those dogs. And so keep me safe. So every day, my mother, good Christian mother, we wouldn't go out of the house unless she blessed us. And so we're saying, Mom, we're late. We have to go. Well, go on. No, Mom. Oh, okay. God bless you. Be good. Don't shame the Sotelo name, please. And then we could go. Then we would leave the house. So that was the beginning for me. A religious family who at least believed in a God, believed in a real God, and believed that he could answer prayer. I want to preface this by saying we were poor. I don't mean kind of poor. We were poor. There were 12 children in our family, and I was number 6. And so the things I'm going to talk about, I want you to keep in mind, this is God's doing. I don't have any money. I don't have any resources to do all the things that God led me to do. So our founding Acharya says we have forgotten who we are. We have forgotten who we really are, and we have forgotten God. I think that is correct. We have forgotten. And it takes something to awaken us to that place, to just the beginning, to realize there is a God and that God is real. He listens to me. He sees me. He's concerned for me. He loves me. Those are the beginning steps of a spiritual life. I began to talk to God. And as far as I knew, through we used to call it junior high. Now it's middle school. All through school, praying every day. In junior high and high school, I was a Christian nerd. I carried my Bible to school and put it prominently on my desk. I don't know what I would have done if somebody would have asked me something about it, because I didn't know anything about it, but it was there. And I put little tracts in there so I could give out to somebody. So that was junior high and high school. When I was 15, I turned 15, and my mother had decided that, there's 12 children, my grandmother, and she decided that any traveling missionaries, preachers would be staying with us. And my dad thought she was crazy. She says, I'm working 2 jobs trying to support the kids and you, and then you're inviting other people in. And she said, oh, but Jose, today we're helping this person. Tomorrow maybe one of my children are out there. They need help. Somebody may help them because we're helping now. So, okay. He knew better than to argue with my mother. So at 15, a traveling preacher came through town. I guess you would call him, what would we call him? A sannyasi? It's a traveling preacher. That was his job. He just went all over the country preaching. So this traveling preacher came to hold meetings at our church, and he stayed with us. We would make excuses every night saying, oh no, too much homework, can't go. So we wouldn't go to the meetings. My mother went with him. So the last night of the meetings, I decided to please my mom, I would go with her to the meeting. So I go to the meeting, and of course, she sat up front, and I sat at the last pew in the church so I could have a quick escape if I wanted to get out of there. So I'm sitting there, and I'm all this time I've been talking to God. So I'm sitting there, and I'm beginning to sweat and beginning to stir because God is speaking, and He's saying, I want more. I want more. And I say, but I go to church. I go to church every Sunday. I do this. I'm good. I obey my parents. I want more. I want more. And so I didn't know what that meant. And I thought, nah, that's crazy. So in my mind, in my heart, I'm praying. I'm saying, okay, God, if you want me, then have them sing. And I picked a random page, 462. And the pastor says, and now we'll sing 462. I said, no, this can't be. So I said, let's do this again. 562. And it's like, and now we'll sing 562. It's like, okay, I give up. I give up. I will give my life to you, meaning I will read the scriptures, I'll go to church, and I'll try to follow your teachings. That's all it meant to me at 15. I didn't know. What does God want? What does He want from me? And so at 15, I decided I was going to try the best I could to follow God. So that went on for a while. I started reading the scriptures. In those days, the Gideons, do you know the Gideons? The Gideons organization? They would come to our school when the kids were in 5th grade. I don't know why they picked the 5th grade, but they would come to the 5th grade and give every student a New Testament. So the Gideons came, and I got a New Testament in the 5th grade. So that's what I was reading. I was reading those scriptures. So everything's fine. Finally, November of 1966, I was 17 and in the 11th grade. And another sannyasi came through, another preacher. This one was from Guatemala. And he was not preaching about a beginning part. He was talking about, have you ever considered a vocation in spiritual work? Have you ever thought about being a missionary, being a pastor? And by 17, I was convicted. I knew I had to go up. And so at 17, I went forward, and that's when I dedicated my life to full-time service to God, when I was 17, under that pastor. So the Bhagavad Gita, one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me, and renders transcendental loving service to me, is the most intimately united with me. By 17, I was in love with God. I love God. And there was no to it. So at 18, the summer when I was 18, I volunteered to go to Tijuana, Mexico, to work in an orphanage. And so I'm 18. They put me in charge to supervise 50 boys at the orphanage. And the oldest was 18 and the youngest was like 5. And so I worked that summer in that orphanage. What I'm learning, what God is teaching me is that He is right there. He will help me. The 18-year-old boys, I'm 18, they're 18, they're saying, you know what, Jorge? If you've got an American dollar, you can have any prostitute right across the fence. They're over there. Look, can you see them? And I'm thinking, I don't think so. But if you have an American dollar, so the temptation was there, and it wasn't just one time, every night, come on, let's go. No. Through the grace of God, the love of God, I was able to say no. God was my strength. And in all this story I'm telling you, I don't want you I'm not bragging about me. I'm saying this is what God is doing. God is doing this. I don't have any money. I am just 18 years old, and God is operating. On March 3rd, 1968, I was baptized. In the Christian church, in the Protestant church, baptism is a rite of passage. It is an enactment of dying to the world and resurrection to new life. So in the Baptist church that I was in, this was done in a big tank of water. There's different ways of doing baptism. They can sprinkle water on your head or something like that. But this was, the pastor is in this big thing of water. I walk into it. He takes me and puts me under the water 3 times. In the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, in the name of the Holy Spirit. I'm dying to self. I'm rising to new life in God. And so that was my baptism. After that, I knew I needed training. I've learned that faith and action go together. They always go together. Faith and action. If you really believe, you're going to act. You're going to act on that. And so I didn't even know if there were any schools that taught the Bible. But somehow I got information about a school in Ohio that taught Bible. And so I thought it was the only one in the country. I had no idea. So I go there, and it's a Christian Methodist holiness college, very conservative. And I just didn't fit. I was the only Latino on campus. There was one other African American and an African student. We were the only minorities on campus. And so it didn't work for me. It was the first time I experienced institutional racism. Do you know what that is? Institutional racism. There were 3 minorities on that campus, two men and 1 woman. I was placed in a dorm room with the African. Why the African? Well, you have to keep minorities together. They understand each other. They're about the same color, you know? So there are institutions, organizations that are actually built to keep people out. For example, an organization, the leaders are white, usually men, white men. They control, they make the decisions, they hold the money. And they may have sub-organizations, but those organizations are subject to those leaders. They cannot make any decisions without them, and they do not hold any money. So institutional racism, that was the first time I experienced that. Well, I lasted there 1 semester and left, because by then I'd heard about a real Bible college in Detroit, Detroit Bible College, and they offered a 4-year course in the study of the scriptures and offered a bachelor's degree in religious education. So I went there. While I was there, made lots of wonderful friends, and those friends that were graduating were going off to the mission field, many of them going to Europe. And so I went maybe 2 or 3 years, and then I decided I'm going to go to Europe. I'll remind you, I don't have any money. I didn't have any money to pay for the college. So I started praying and thought, God, if this is your will, if you want me to go, I'll go. So I don't know how, but money came in and I was able to get the passage. And so for the first time, I went to Europe. I went to Spain. I joined a men's team that was doing book distribution. Book distribution. I was ahead of you guys. I was already doing it. So we were distributing Christian literature and having meetings in plazas and camping out and going to plazas and door to door and distributing Christian literature. That was a wonderful experience for me because one, somehow God got me there. I'd never left the United States. Here I was in Spain for the whole summer. What I learned, what God showed me was that at that young age, God can use me and God can use you at whatever age, whatever time. My big job all summer was driving the van because the other men didn't know how to drive a straight stick, how to do the shifting. And this van had the gears. And so I was the only one that knew how to drive it, so I became the driver. Is that devotional service? You betcha. How are they going to get where they're going to go if I don't take them? That was devotional service. That was my service for the summer. So I came back, finished the Bible college, got a bachelor's degree in religious education, and Spain was a very interesting thing for me. So I was arrested in Spain. Some of you are saying, I knew it. I saw it in his eyes. No, I was arrested because our conference was in Belgium. We were driving across Europe to Spain. When we crossed the French border to Spain, I was asleep. It was like midnight. I was asleep in the back of the van, and my passport didn't get stamped. So we're in Madrid in the plazas, playing the guitar, singing, passing out literature, talking to people, and the gendarmen come. At that time, this was like 73. It was still under a dictatorship. Franco was the dictator. So there were a lot of gendarmen. They come and they ask for our passports. Mine doesn't have a stamp. I say, come with us. So one other teammate and I were arrested, taken to a jail, and we're taken to this cell. It's just a big cement thing with bars in the front, no window. There's a hole in the ground for a toilet, no water, no blankets, nothing. So the person that was arrested with me said, what are we going to do? And I said, you know what? We're going to do a Paul and Silas. He said, what's that? He said, well, in the scriptures, Paul and Silas were Christians preaching in Rome, and they were causing a ruckus, and so they were arrested. They were put in jail, and they decided they were going to sing and pray, sing and pray, sing and pray, sing and pray. And at midnight, the cell doors, the angel of the Lord came, and the cell doors were open, and they got out. So I said, we're going to do a Paul and Silas. So, okay. So we sang and we prayed, we sang and we prayed. I'm not kidding you. Midnight, the police chief comes and he says, no, a jailer came and he said, the police chief wants to see you. Okay. So we go to the police chief. He said, do you believe in the Virgin Mary? And I said, well, of course we do. That's the mother of Jesus. And he says, well, I'm tired of hearing you sing and pray. Get out of here. Go. So we were let out at midnight. So we got out. So the power of God, the power of prayer. God, if God sends you, God calls you and sends you, he's going to provide for you. He will equip you and he will provide. He's not going to leave you alone. He sends you on mission. He's going to be with you in that mission. So I'm learning that God is a great God who has a lot of power, a lot of ability to help me to serve him and to serve his people. In January 12th of 1974, I received a preaching license from the Baptist denomination. In that denomination, you had to have a preaching license in order to preach in any of our Baptist churches. So at that time, in 74, I got a preaching license. And then soon after that, I was ordained as a pastor. On March 29th, 1975, I was ordained as a pastor. Again, I was young, and I didn't know what that meant, but I felt God was calling me to Christian leadership. And so I was ordained. How naive I was, I'll let you know. I was ordained on a weekend. On Monday, I'm at my family home. I walk down the stairs, go sit down. My mom's in the kitchen, like always. She's making breakfast. I grab the newspaper and I'm reading the newspaper. There's a door knock, and my mother wipes her hands on her apron and goes to answer the door. And then she comes back. She says, Jorge, they're asking for Pastor Sotelo. Who's that? And I'm reading the paper. I said, I don't know. That's me. That's me. I'm Pastor Sotelo. So I said, let her in. So it was a lady, and she wanted to do a confession. So we had a good living room and then the family room. So only company could go in the good living room. So I ushered her into the new living room, and I asked my mom, come with me, because I'm a single man. This is a lady. So just sit in the corner. Don't say anything, Mom. Just sit there in respect to this woman. So we sat on the couch. I sat with the couch with the woman, and we talked, and I gave her some advice and listened to her and prayed with her. And my mother is sitting there with her mouth open. Like, this is my child? And that was the day I identified as a pastor. I am a pastor. I'm Pastor Sotelo. God gave me the ability, the knowledge, the preparation to know what to say to this lady, how to comfort this lady, to pray with this lady. That was God. At that moment, I didn't know I could do that, but God helped me in that. I returned from Europe. I went again on June the 14th, 1975. I went back to Europe. And this time, I was going to go for a longer time, for 1 year. And the organization I went with was called Send the Light, and they were from New Jersey. And so I went to Europe, and this time I was going to join a team that was going to go to Turkey. And we were to go to Turkey and begin working there. And so I joined the team. We drove from Belgium to Turkey, crossed all those countries and went to Turkey. And we went along the Black Sea and took 3 months of language study. And then we were divided 2 by 2 into different cities. My roommate, my companion was an Irishman. He and I were assigned Ankara, the capital. So we went to the capital and we joined the university so we could get a student visa and could stay for 1 year. And so we were in Turkey. What God showed me there is, for the first time in my life, I was in a country that was religious and were serious about their faith and were living out their faith. These people were living out their faith. And what do I mean by that? They keep 5 principles, 5 laws that they live by. The first one is you personally proclaim, there is only one God. I believe in God and only one God. Praying 5 times a day. Keeping the annual fast. Giving alms to the poor, and visiting Mecca once a year, making the Hajj, making a visit to Mecca. So it was very interesting for me. We weren't trying to convert anyone. We were trying to correct misconceptions by the Muslims. The Muslims believed that Christians believed in God the Father, Mary, his wife, and Jesus, their baby. 3 gods. Saying, no, we believe in one God. We believe in one God. So many opportunities to share that gospel. It was, what God showed me there in my spiritual journey was I willing to give my life for the gospel, for the good news, for telling people about God. And by that I mean, it's a Muslim country. It's against the law to evangelize. It's you get a jail term if you convert a Muslim to Christianity. So we go into the country, and the first thing we hear is one of our missionaries has been killed. He's in his home. There's a knock at the door. He goes to the door, and the man shoots him right in front of his pregnant wife. Shoots him and kills him simply because he's a Christian.
What country was that?
Turkey. In Turkey. So before I left for Turkey, I made a will. On a tape, I recorded my goodbyes to my parents, my brothers and sisters, and because I didn't know if I would come back, if I would be able to come back. So at that point, I was so in love with God and so convinced about the message of God that I could have a relationship with God that, yeah, I was willing to give my life to God. So in the scriptures in Romans 12, and we know this very well, do not be conformed to this present world, but be transformed. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may test and approve what is the will of God, what is good and well-pleasing and perfect. transformation. And that's what we're talking about. This whole, it's a process. You're not going to get it all in one swoop at one time. It's a process. You begin. I was talking with my brother Tamal about this, and he gave a wonderful description. Saying it's like throwing a stone into a still pond, and it begins small, and it goes, and it goes, and it goes, and it ripples, and it continues. And so, for me, this life, this spiritual life, I'm not done. I'm not done in this spiritual life. After Turkey, well, this is my mistake. Okay, you're going to have mistakes along the way. I'm in Turkey. I'm trying to work with Muslims. I'm a single man. They are not going to let me into their house because I'm a single man. They're protecting their women. So they're not going to let a single man come into their house. So how am I going to get into their houses and preach to them about God, the love of God? So I thought, in my mind, this is me, myself. I'm not consulting God. I'm thinking, I need a wife. I need a wife. So a companion to help me, to be with me, and go into these homes, and I can get into these homes. So I haven't dated. And so I'm thinking, who can be my wife? And I'm thinking of my best friend. There was a young woman in my church who, same pastor, she had gone to the same religious schools. Our family knew each other. She was my best friend. And so I proposed by mail. And she answered by cassette. I don't know if you know what cassettes are, but a little message on a tape. So she said yes. So I thought, great, I've got a companion. We'll be able to continue in ministry. It'll be great. And so she came to Europe. And for the summer, we worked together. We were in Germany and England and in Belgium, distributing literature and talking to people. And we decided to go back home to be married. And we went home and we got married. We got married. Oh gosh, I don't remember the actual date. It must have been like 76. And so we got married. We were there for a while. So we joined one of the sannyasi's team. He had a team that he took with him around the country, a small team. So we joined that team. We evangelized Canada, United States, and Mexico together. And so it was fine. And during that time, I got my first assignment, my first church. That was in California. And that was in the San Francisco Bay Area. So we go, my father and my mother, my oldest sister and her husband drove us to California. And we get to California and I'm the assistant pastor of a church, a little Mexican church. And on this campus, there was a little chapel for the Mexican people. There was a big church for the white people, English-speaking people. And there was a Christian high school on the same property. So I became the pastor of the church and a teacher in the high school, and that's how we lived. And things were fine, but things were not fine. I had made the decision to marry. I didn't consult God, and I thought it made sense. Same pastor, same schools, same family. She didn't want anything to do with the religious work. I had married her for convenience. I needed a partner. She married me because she was from a small farming village and she wanted to see the world. She's going to marry me and I'm going to take her around the world as a missionary. Well, here we are in this little Mexican church in California. She didn't want to come to church. They hired you, not me. So it was a struggle. We struggled for 4 years. And then I thought, she's not happy. I'm not happy. I can't do this anymore. And so I pushed for the divorce and we finally got a divorce. We were actually married 7 years, but 4 years together. And she went back to Michigan. I stayed in California and continued there for a little bit, but not much longer. I was divorced and I had broken my vows to God. So I could no longer be a pastor and I could no longer be in that congregation. So I had to leave. I was lost. I was lost for 2 years. I didn't go to church. I didn't read the scriptures. I thought God is angry with me. I've broken my vows, and there's no hope for me. In 1980, I met my partner, and my partner, Stephen. Stephen was an Episcopalian, and he was, at that time, just preparing to be confirmed. And so he said, come with me to church, and the roof will fall in. God is mad at me. And so, but I went to church with him. They were welcoming. They said, welcome, stay as long as you want. And when you're ready to do something in the church, there's plenty to do, and just let us know. And so I was there for 2 years, and then my partner said, you need to get back into ministry. That's who you are. You need to get back. And so I talked to the priest and said, what's the process to be ordained? And I got started in the process. So this was 1983. 1983, I started the process to be a priest, to be ordained a priest. I wasn't ordained until 1993. How long is that? 10 years. I've already been a pastor, already gone 4 years to seminary. 10 more years, 4 more years of study in their schools. Read this book, go to this interview, do an internship in another church, be a chaplain in a hospital, and going for interviews and going before this committee and presenting papers. And finally, at the end of 10 years, I went to the bishop and said, don't you think this is enough? And he said, yes, this year you'll be ordained. And so he went to the commissions that I was interviewing with and said, Jorge will be ordained this year. And so in 1993, I was ordained. So do you ever wonder what it's like to be a spiritual leader, pastor, priest? It's not easy. I was assigned to a church in the Bay Area, and it was a little tiny remnant congregation, about 40 or 50 people, in this big church that sat 250 people. And they were the remnant because they had an endowment. And an endowment so they could pay somebody to be priest just to them. So here we are in this huge church with 50 people. And I asked them, can I start a Spanish congregation here? And they said, are there Hispanics around here? We were surrounded. We were surrounded by Hispanics. I said, well, yeah, okay. They didn't think anything would happen. So I put a big sign outside, Misa en Español, Spanish mission, mass. And so people started coming. We started with 10. I was there 10 years. And in 10 years, when I was leaving, we had 200 Hispanics in that church and 100 children in Sunday school. God blessed us and God brought people, and that was a thriving. There were still the remnant 40, so I did Mass in English and Mass in Spanish, and that was fine. Was it difficult? Were there problems? Yeah, racial problems as well, because I'm a Hispanic priest to an English congregation. I'm bringing in all these Mexicans into church, so there was some pushback. One day I was in the office and there was a Hispanic family in the church decorating it for one of their Hispanic feasts. And there was an English lady in the kitchen, in the church kitchen. And she goes from the kitchen to the church and she shouts at the Mexican lady, cochina, cochina, cochina. And the lady comes to me and says, why is she yelling that to me? Cochina means you dirty pig. And it's like, why is she calling me a dirty pig? And I said, Joanne, what are you doing? She says, I'm telling her to come to the kitchen. Cocina. Cocina. She wanted the woman to come to the kitchen because there was spilt water and she was sure that that woman had done it. So she's saying, cochina, cochina, instead of cocina, come to the kitchen. So things like that would happen. Crazy things. I was at that church. My last job in California was to be the official for multicultural ministries. It meant that I was in charge of all the minority churches. We had Japanese, Chinese, Fijian, Spanish, even sign language. And so I was to develop programs for them and how they could make tracks for ordination. Because for ordination, you have to have a bachelor's degree to get into seminary, where you're in a master's degree. How is a Spanish family, a man in a Spanish family with children, going to leave, go to seminary for 3 years, not work? They couldn't do that. So I needed to find another way for them to be able to go into ministry. So that was my job for 3 years. After 3 years, we wanted to retire. We could not retire in California, too expensive. So we came to Tucson. We came here, and I went to the bishop and talked to him, told him I was here, and he said, fine, if you were living in Phoenix, I would give you a job tomorrow. Well, we got a house in Tucson. I can't, we just arrived. I can't sell my house and move to Phoenix. So we stayed in Tucson. My first job here was to work in a hospice. In a hospice, the patients are expected to live between 4 and 6 months. They're at the end of their life. So I was a chaplain in the hospice for 1 year. And it was wonderful. God gave me the ability, I didn't know I even had, to sit down with somebody who's dying and hold their hand and saying, you're fine. You're going to be fine. You've done everything fine, and you can rest now. You can rest. You've done everything. And to hold their hands and be able to be with them was such a privilege to see them as they go on. I can tell you that those that had a spiritual past were fine. They would just fall asleep. If you did not, it was horrible. The screaming, what's going to happen? How's this going to, where am I go? There was just fear, great fear. They didn't know where they were going, what was going to happen, if anything was going to happen, and great fear. Well, I was at that hospice that was on First Avenue, and entered my friend, my best friend, Bob Ebert. His spiritual name is Gopal Krishna. So Bob and I met in California, and we've known each other over 30 years. So he would come to the hospice and pick me up for lunch. And of course, he would go down the street to Govinda's. He would go to Govinda's. So we went there a couple of times, and I saw that they had a really neat little shop, and that's all I knew that they had. But I knew there was a bunch of other buildings. So he introduced me to Mother Sindhamani. And so I started asking questions. Why do I have to take my shoes off? What am I bowing to? How come you keep chanting the same words over and over again? I wanted to know everything. So I first came to Govinda's 2011. 2011 was the first time. I kept coming, asking questions, going to the services. For the first times I came to the temple, I would sit at the back. I didn't bow. I didn't chant. I think, I need to figure this out first. It looks like a cult to me. I don't know. Could be. They do a lot of weird things. They dress funny. They're saying some chanting words that I don't understand. And so 2011, it took me until 2015. I think that's when we were, 2015, to be initiated. I had met Jivananda, and this man, I just couldn't get past him. The love he had for people. Bob and I were questioning. So we would have private meetings with Jivananda, and we'd question him, and he would lovingly answer. And he had an answer for every question we had. And so finally, one night, I'm at home, and I'm at my computer and I type him a message to Jivananda saying, can I take shelter from you? Would you dare take an Episcopal priest as your disciple? And I press to send, and it jumps back saying, yes. He had been chanting and praying about the same thing that I would ask. And so I took shelter with Jivananda. So 70 years in this spiritual life, am I done? No. I felt like I was beginning again, coming to Krishna consciousness. There is this 5,000-year-old scripture that I know nothing about that's telling me about God in a way that I never saw. It's telling me about a path to go back to God. It was all new, all brand new. I felt I've got 7 years of biblical study. I'm a pastor, I'm a priest, I've done this, I've done that, but nothing compared to what I was learning through the Bhagavad Gita and through Krishna consciousness. I'm here now. I'm here now. I'm still learning and I'm still doing whatever I can in Christian service and in divine service and in service to God. God has not left me. I want to leave you with the fact that, so in Krishna consciousness, we believe in God. Oh, I'm sorry, am I going over time? Okay. We believe in God. So do you believe that God can see you? Yeah. Do you believe God can hear you? Do you believe that God can be present? Yeah. So if all those things, God can speak, right? So I've been talking to God over 70 years. He's talking back. He's speaking. God will speak. We need to learn to listen. But God will speak. He will speak through people, through books, through nature, in so many, through your mind, through your heart, feelings. God will speak. We need to learn to listen. The other thing I've learned is when God speaks, you obey. Don't think about it. Don't analyze it. Do it. I'm going to give you 2 examples. And these are recent, within this year. One was one of our disciples called me and asked me to go to the airport, take him to the airport. And I said, yeah. So I was going to take him to the airport the next day. So the morning that I'm going to take him to the airport, I'm just about ready to leave the house. And I hear in my head, and I felt in my heart, the phrase saying, take him $50 and a shoulder bag. I thought, well, that's crazy, but I know better. I'm going to do it. I took $50, I put $50 in my pocket, and I took a book bag, a shoulder bag. And so I go to the house of this person, and I walk in, and he's putting things into a shabby yellow book bag. It was all tattered. I said, oh, I brought you this. He said, oh, great. And he starts putting everything in the other bag. And I said, oh, and I want to give you $50. He said, I owe somebody $50. Thank you. It was like, okay. So I did it. I didn't understand it, but I did it. And this is what God wanted. More recently, what was it? God was speaking. God will speak. God will answer. God will direct you. There are so many times, but when he does, obey, do it. You don't have to understand it. Don't analyze it. Just do it. Oh, I know the other thing. The other thing, I was in church, and it was one Sunday that I didn't have to serve. So I'm in a pew, and in our church they give you a bulletin, order of service, and there's always a white envelope in there for a special ministry, like we have a food pantry for social services or something. So there's a white envelope, and it's for the pantry. And I'm sitting there saying, you know what, God, whatever you lead me to do, I'm going to do today, just today. whatever you want me to do. So I felt I needed to put money in that envelope. I never put money in those envelopes. So I put $40 in the white envelope. And I thought it was fine. It was a beautiful mass. I leave there, and it's on Wilmont, and it's close to Beyond Bread. So I go to Beyond Bread to get a couple of sandwiches for me and for Stephen. And so I'm at the register. I order the sandwiches, and somebody puts their credit card in front of me, said, "I'll pay for Padre." It was $40. The sandwiches were $40. I put $40 in the envelope. God speaks, God will provide. We need to listen. There was one little, Bhagavad Gita chapter 9 says, if one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it. If God will accept those tiny little gifts from you, what if you're to say, I give you me. This life I'll give to you. You'll accept it. You'll accept it.
You'll be more than happy.
And be ready. It's an exciting life.
Give them a flower or your whole life.
That's right.
What do you choose?
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Quick question, brother. Quick question.
Yes.
What happened in confession?
I can never tell you. I can never tell you. That's one thing a priest, confession is a wonderful thing because it is the one person you can talk to and tell him anything. And they're not there really listening. You're speaking to God. And that person is just a mediary. And so you're telling God the things that are on your heart. And it's the priest that has the privilege of saying, I know God will forgive you. God forgives you in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. It's not me. I don't forgive them. I can't forgive them, but God does.
They reveal their heart.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Yeah.
First of all, thank you so much. It was beautiful. It made me think about Prahlad when you said your mom would bring all these spiritual teachers
Yeah.
home because that was Prahlad's experience. Can you just say something about? And then I was just going to say the word that kept coming to my mind was surrender, because throughout your whole life you were surrendering. So Krishna knew that you were a surrendered soul, so he brought you to another stage.
Absolutely. Yes.
And then how has your relationship with Jesus changed? Did you need to leave Jesus behind? Or how has that changed?
I think every person, a Christian, has to come up to their own terms as to the person of Jesus, who he is and who is in their life. I've come to terms. I believe Jesus is who he said he is, the Son of God. And that's who I believe he is. And that works for me. How do I put Christianity and Krishna consciousness together? I don't see any conflict. One God, we're a spirit soul. Our journey is to get back to God. It's the same message. Yeah.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So, when you pray now, how do you pray? Do you actually
Well,
pray?
The thing is that after so long, I can't stop praying. I can't turn it off. I am always praying. In my mind, in my heart, I'm always praying. I try to turn it off. I can't turn it off. My first thought in the morning is thank you, God, for another day. My first thing at night is to confess and to pray for others and pray for myself. I can't stop it. So my prayer is just a conversation, a continued conversation. Help me be better. Help me to be of service to you.
Do you pray to Jesus, or do you pray to specific saints, or do you pray to Krishna?
I pray to God,
God.
to God himself. Yeah. I pray for others. I have 65 people I pray for every night.
I'm on the list.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that a new dress?
Yeah, you look like a new girl now. Yes.
Something I got for staying behind.
See?